Hola, and welcome back to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Esther Thorpe.
And I'm Peter Houston.
Yeah, you've got two of us on this time. I was going to say we're fresh back from a week in Madrid, but Peter, I'm not sure you're very fresh.
Not so fresh with me today.
So we've just spent a week, well, most of last week at FIPP Congress 2025 in the beautiful city of Madrid. So Peter, apart from the coffee at the Charros place, what were your highlights?
What was that place called?
Yeah, Chocolateria San Ginés in Madrid.
These guys started with one shop and they've now got, 4 around this little corner? Yeah, I'm not sure what it did for my sugar levels, but it was amazing. I mean, yeah, other than excellent food, excellent company, excellent wine, I don't think I had a bad glass of wine. I'd say I was there for almost 8 days.
There was a lot of cured meat.
Yeah, they definitely did. What does Spanish museo mean?
Museo is museum.
Then there's a museum of ham.
Yeah, there's a museum of ham just in Madrid. They're just...
Wow. Yeah, they do take it seriously. Anyway, all that aside, the speaker list at FIPP Congress is always amazing, and this year did not disappoint. I mean, it's a proper, from my point of view, it's a proper who's who of magazine brands, but then you've also got the New York Times,
Time, Economist, Bauer, Hearst. It was pretty much a who's who, isn't it, of who's who in the industry.
Interestingly, though, all the big dogs from those companies tend to be on the main stage, as you would expect. But they also had this innovation stage, and it was really, really cool because it was proper nuts and bolts stuff.
Thanks, that's where my panel was.
It was, Esther. No, I think, the big names go on the big stage and up-and-coming people or whatever go on the other stage. And it was just really cool. And I thought it was a really interesting mix. Overall, as you'd expect, lots and lots and lots of AI chat. Some people seeming a little bit jaded or bummed out by all the AI chat. But that said, I attended a workshop organised by Lucky Gunaskera at Miso, and it was rammed. I think there was supposed to be 15 people in the room, and there was easily 25. Yeah, it was proper standing room only. And what Lucky was doing was showing how even if you, as a publisher, you do the blocking thing with the robots.txt, most of the models are just ignoring that. And that's kind of bullshit. And
surely not. We had the OpenAI guy saying that they would respect that, didn't we?
And you know what? That's the interesting contrast. They had Tom Rubin, who's the chief of IP and content at OpenAI. I mean, he's a brave man, right? To go to a publishing conference and stand on the stage and try and tell a positive story about OpenAI and publishing was kind of nuts. I mean, I know there's a lot of licensing deals out there and everything, but not everyone can do a licensing deal. So David Buttle, who's an AI consultant, tried his best to get some answers. And Ricky Sutton from the audience, Ricky does the Scotch and Watch podcast with Chris Duncan. They had a go. I mean, Ricky asked them if AI would actually do deals with publishers to pay them for content used, and we're still waiting on the answer for that. But it was interesting, and it was cool. To me, it was almost a starting point for that conversation, where there's a lot of publishers in the room thinking, okay, maybe if OpenAI's open to getting on that stage, maybe there is a conversation to be had. I'm not sure. I don't know. When I talked to Neil Vogel a couple of weeks back, he said OpenAI was better than Google. So we'll wait.
Great. What a high bar we have.
But the whole conference was great. The one complaint I've got, as always, as you can imagine, even although we distributed a beautifully made 200-page wonderful print magazine, there wasn't enough talk about print on the stage and stages. So I'm lobbying for that next year. Print's back. People need to get their head around.
There was more than I thought there'd be. There were quite a few on the innovation stage it popped up. But again, yeah, smaller stages.
Never enough.
Yeah, I think for me, the venue was absolutely beautiful. You look up at the ceiling and it was just this sort of beautiful painted ceiling. It was incredible. I think, like you said, because it was all the big dogs on the main stage, there were a lot of really positive stories about growth and investment, which obviously like those invited to speak are going to be the ones that are growing and have positive stories to tell. But I don't know how you found the conversations over wine at both lunch and dinner. The delegate conversations were quite different, and I think particularly the AI challenges and changes and what's going on with sort of search and audience acquisition, it's really deeply worrying people. And I know a lot of the publishers on stage said, oh, well, if you're a leading brand or if you're on the top sort of 1 to 2 of brands, you're fine, you're going to ride this out. But there's an awful lot of people that are not the top 1 or 2 brand in their area that are sitting there thinking, well, what's the outlook for us then?
There's a strategy in that. When I talked to Sean Cornwell at Immediate, he said they were doubling down on being the biggest name in a particular sector. He also said, don't get stressed out by what you can't control, which is easier said than done, obviously.
But then if you're paying staff and salaries,
absolutely. Yeah, the reality is not always that. I talked to Rebecca Miskin from DC Thompson. She said a similar thing. The idea. She had a brilliant phrase, and we'll have it in the episode. I asked her what transformation was, and she said it's like playing chess and Russian roulette at the same time, which I just thought was the best phrase ever. And that's why these guys on the stage that are telling positive stories, they've got stuff to deal with, right? There was optimism from everyone I talked to, but in some instances it was narrow optimism. It wasn't like, oh yeah, everything's sorted. It was like, oh well, my subs are growing really well, or I've got a new podcast going on, a new podcast series going on, or I've got a new newsletter series going on, or I'm doing this for print that's made it more lux than it used to be. It was stuff like that. It was optimism around particular tactics rather than an overall yeehaw, this industry is back on track.
Yeah, I think anybody that invested in reader revenue and subs in the last 5 years, that was the time to make that move.
Yeah, definitely. I think the AI thing is true. You're right about AI. Everyone is scared. They're terrified that it's going to steal their lunch. But you can't ignore it, right? You got to figure out what's the best way of doing it.
Yes, I mean, there was a lot that came out across those 2 days. Obviously, there's far too many to include here. I think we've mainly included clips from the main stage sessions here. Anyway, without further ado, I think we're going to go into these highlights. There are 4 of them. There's transformation, opportunities, brands and people, and then, yes, we do get into AI as a tool. So here we go. The first theme was that we're at a key moment of transformation. Now, that's not a shocking revelation to anyone who's kept up with industry news. Forget headwinds, it seems like there are challenges to revenues and audience growth on almost every front. But what some publishers were keen to highlight was the speed of the change. Unlike the digital trends and transformations of the last 20 years, businesses cannot afford to react slowly to what's happening now. Here's Mark Howard, Chief Operating Officer at Time.
We are making Time the best version of itself every single day. And we think about this as a tremendous moment of transformation in the media space, accelerated exponentially by all things AI. We think that we are at this critical, pivotal moment of transformation, and you need to embrace it, you need to lean into it, and every day filter everything through your own lens of your own business and being that best version of yourself.
Time and many of the other publishers speaking on stage are seeing growth. Mark shared that their advertising revenue is up 23%, their events business has grown over 50% since 2022, and they have their youngest ever audience, with half being 35 and under. Their attitude as a company is, don't let AI happen to you, let AI happen for you. Here's Mark talking about their approach to rapid AI-driven changes.
We viewed, as of over 2 years ago, there was essentially 3 paths that you could take as a media company. You could litigate, you can negotiate, or you could do nothing and be a passive observer and wait to see how things shake out. We did not view the third option as an option at all. Litigation is extremely expensive and time consuming, and it will take a while still for a number of those cases to be resolved. So we really leaned into negotiate, and we felt that by being a partner, by trying to be aggressive with what we did, was going to be a bigger payoff for us in terms of our evolution. We also acknowledge that in the history of time, the mediums and the distribution and the channels with which consumers engage with content has evolved every couple decades. Obviously, print and newsstands was the original path, and then there were movie reels, and then later there's been the digital comeuppance, which then became mobile, became social, now is AI. And we wanted to embrace that. And we took a partnership approach. As you mentioned, we've got 15 stated partnerships. Some of them are foundational, so that it's more about at the technology level. It's about putting all of our IP on the blockchain so that we have a record in the future of every piece of content that we own. It's about tracking the AI bots and agents that come to the site, understanding what content they're consuming and whether they're scraping or indexing or crawling and fetching. So getting that in place. Then it was important for us to do a number of content deals, and we were very aggressive there. We did an early deal with OpenAI, Perplexity. Our partner Parata is here. We're very proud of that partnership and the business model that they're trying to develop, which is very much in line with the way that we see how this world should work.
But it's not just the technology changing. What audiences expect is evolving as well, as Mark pointed out.
So we took this approach that consumer behavior is, again, radically changing. The mechanisms with which people consume content and information is a completely new paradigm, and we wanted our brand to best show up and be represented in those environments.
This idea of being at a critical moment of transformation was echoed by Lucy Kung, professor, advisor, NED and author, and she has a deep expertise in digital transformation processes at publishers. She spoke on a panel alongside a media operator's Jacob Donnelly and Azure's Jacqueline Locke about the rise of creators and how established media can lean into creator growth.
Okay, so much of the challenge, I think, in the media industry is about unlearning. And I think right now people are applying digital transformation. We learned about that. Okay, let's apply this creator economy. And this is going to go so much faster, has already gone faster, because if you look at digital, the industry change, developed products, we kind of brought the audience along. The audience is already in the creator economy. They're very happy there. They're happy to an extent that, governments are looking at how to get them off the creator economy. Advertisers are there as well. So this is essentially the installed base is there. The habits are entrenched. It's a party that is happening that essentially classic media now has to gate crash. They have to find a way in, but it is large, it is functioning. These organizations are the most successful creators, are very large media businesses now.
Entering crowded markets and thriving in those spaces is something some of the best publishers have been able to do. And Joe Martin, a VP of Media Licensing at Hearst magazines, doesn't see the present challenges as being insurmountable. He gave a talk on Hearst's playbook for navigating this new reality and said it's still all to play for.
And actually, despite a lot of the talk of declines, we're actually, in our international business, up year on year in traffic across our brands. And a lot of that, actually, we have the Spain office to thank that started a lot of these best practices, which helped create our playbook. We are very optimistic about the future. We're still talking about Frank Sinatra had a cold 60 years later. And we only have to look at some of the really successful examples like Harper's Bazaar in France that we launched 3 years ago. Some of you that attended FIPP last year will remember Claire Lios from Prisma did a presentation on this. And we launched Bazaar in an incredibly crowded market that was a print-first product even, and that many people think wouldn't succeed. But they focused on leaning into what the brand represents, made it very French, produced excellent content, and it's now become a market leader. And we're seeing this play out in following that playbook with other editions as well. We have a lot of brands, as you can see. Some of these are very old. They have some of it old enough that they've survived world wars and, of course, the birth of the internet. And we truly believe that working with the right international partners around the world, leaning into what made these brands so special in the beginning and people to fall in love with them, that they will continue to thrive throughout the next iteration of the information landscape.
Fernando Yaza, president at Spanish media company Geneo, shared a similar experience in a later session.
It's clear, Roberto, that we are facing a disruption. It's what is coming. It's probably is the biggest thing we will see in our lives as a challenge. But I remember 15 years ago, they also told me that we were dead, especially as a small media, regional media house. And after all those things we have been talking about, we are 20 times bigger. I always remember that the Chinese word for crisis means danger and opportunity. So it's obvious that we are facing a disruption, that as in all the disruptions, it will be winners and losers. But 15 years ago, they told me that we have no opportunity, that we were going to die, that there was no room for a small media house from Zaragoza in the middle of nowhere. And now we are in 17 countries, growing 25% per year, diversified into magazines, into technology. So disruptions means that you have to pay attention because the dangers are there, but the opportunities are also there. And I face it in the same way they did it 15 years ago. It's nothing done. I am on danger too, so Eneo can have tough times, but I face it as an opportunity because with that governance, that is, for me, when you have to take decisions really fast, and it's really important. Our finances are good, and as you say, our approach is optimistic that artificial intelligence can be an opportunity as well as a threat. No, but we want to be. There will be winners in this challenge, and we want to be once more in that winner team.
A second theme ran through many of the on-stage sessions, that of opportunity. The speakers we've just heard from there are unafraid of the current landscape because they see the demand and opportunities still to run profitable businesses which serve their audiences well. From brand extensions, product launches, or even whole new publications, publishers are taking bold bets rather than shoring up. Here's The Economist's president, Luke Bradley-Jones, talking about how steady, sustainable growth is one of their core measures of success.
One of your questions was, how do we measure success? And at the risk of sounding trite, we do that through steady, profitable growth. And that's because we're trying to tread a fine line between not going gangbusters on top line because that dilutes your profits, not just trying to maximize for profitability because you undermine your growth prospects, but we're trying to tread that middle path of steady, profitable growth. Partly because we have long-term shareholders who we want to have a predictable long-term return for, but even more importantly because we want to sustain, safeguard our unique editorial voice for the next 180 years, just as we have for the last 180. And we believe that right now our brand of journalism, so independent, fact-based, fearless in our point of view, is more rare and more important than ever before.
It's not just the legacy brands who are seizing opportunities. Semafor, which has just celebrated its 3rd birthday, now has over 1 million newsletter subscribers, 30% of which are C-suite. Semafor founder Justin B. Smith told Flashes and Flames' Colin Morrison that there are still gaps in the market for savvy news brands.
Traditional legacy news media refuses to curate other sources. They're like, no, we're the New York Times. We'll never show you anything that another source does. And I don't know why, they're not thinking of their readers. They're just thinking of themselves. Readers, they want a news platform to not just give you their own news, but they actually really like it if you summarize other people's news, because they don't really have the time. If there's a breaking story on, I don't know, the latest tariff drama in Washington, US-China trade war, there's probably 4 or 5 different articles that day from the English language global news media that are really smart. One could be a blog on Substack, one could be a tweet, one could be just this brilliant piece by Foreign Affairs magazine by a China specialist, and one could be a great Wall Street Journal story. Now, why not tell the reader? Why not you do the hard work of identifying those 4 stories out of the 100 that are written that are the best ones, and then actually packaging that for the reader so that they can actually access that really quickly. If you look at the whole world, there is a lot of opportunity. And this is, I think, maybe one other message I would like to share is, I mean, we genuinely sit in our offices in New York and London and the Gulf and really see opportunity. We see readers that need products that are not being offered by traditional media. We see advertisers and sponsors that want new types of engagements with these audiences. It's not a locked up monopoly market. It's a very disrupted market. The changes that everyone's experiencing are so profound, and that just creates tons of opportunity for new innovative players to come in and provide something different that's user driven and smart.
The New York Times is another leading US publisher, and given they have the crown for the most paid subscribers in the world at nearly 12 million, it's not surprising that they're investing in new formats. Here's their VP of Product and Storytelling, Jordan Vita, outlining where they see opportunities.
We're also really trying to make our product more visual. In an attention deficit economy, complex stories need to be able to be digested quickly. Digital audiences demand immersive visual storytelling that accelerates comprehension. So we now lead our biggest stories or package them with vertical video, immersive photography, and interactive graphics to help people understand the scale and the impact of the events on the ground. We've been investing over the past couple of years in a range of formats that allow more journalists to easily include visuals into their reporting. And we really believe that when people can see the story, they connect much more viscerally to it. Building onto that, we're also trying to be more multimodal. People consume media across multiple contexts, from commuting to exercising to cooking, and they expect to move easily between modes. They want to read, they want to listen, they want to watch. And we believe that our news must fit seamlessly into their lives. So one of our top priorities is making the news more accessible. We want to meet our audience where they are, giving them more ways to engage with us and build a relationship with us.
New launches and extension should always come back to the heart of a publication, though, to be a success, as Vikatan Group Managing Director Srinivasan Balasubramanian explained on a panel about how traditional media brands are becoming media ecosystems. They have incredibly successful influencer and cinema awards, but recognise what's important in giving them credibility.
I will concur with Lulu on one thing, that the awards would never be what they are if there wasn't the magazine brand behind it. So each of our 7 magazine brands, each of them have an award which is related with that magazine and what the magazine stands for. So that's where, I find it is linked. And in many ways, it's also, how we say in India, karma, because you get it from the magazine and then you give it back to the magazine, because the magazine cannot survive on its own. You need to make the money from the events to give it back to the magazine to have more awards that are coming in from the magazine.
I like the karma. I'm going to use it. Karma for magazine.
And I also believe that, the events, just like you were saying, that is probably the one thing which is keeping us AI proof. So physical events, getting communities to interact with the people who make a difference to them and creating some value both for the celebrities as well as for the attendees. That's when, I think as a magazine brand, as long as we continue to do the good work of editorial in a reasonable manner, I would look at editorial and the magazine work as probably the soil and the fertilizer. And, our brands are like the seeds. And then what grows of it comes, you have events, you have awards, you have so many other things, and you have AI and all of audio visual. That becomes the fruits and the flowers, which we hopefully will be able to monetize.
Such a beautiful knowledge.
In that same panel, Cristina Martin Conchero, CEO of Hearst España, reinforced the power of a printed magazine.
One of the things in which we are also diversifying, and I come back to the origins, is also in print. So as you were mentioning before, we are talking about new businesses, of course, the AI, but when we go back to the basics, the print is no longer something that is declining, it's not dead at all. So we are seeing that more people are really eager to read our all our magazines. So diversification also in terms of bookazines, news supplements, is also something that I would just to bring to the stage.
Hearst UK is also not standing still. It has a number of launches coming up, as Newsletter Strategy Director Rosie Percy shared.
So, as you say, it's a standalone app, and we know that cooking is one of the strongest content pillars we have for good housekeeping.
Yeah.
And when we look at utility, we know that from newsletters from other areas of the business, good housekeeping users want content, want advice that makes their lives a little bit easier, that assists them. So this app allows everything all in one place. So I really like the functionality of it, a bit Tinder, left, right, swipe. And you can search through recipes, find something that's going to be a 5-minute preparation meal. You can have something based on a specific ingredient. But this is a standalone to support one of our strongest content pillars to, again, add that customer value. We recognize that cooking is such a huge point for GH readers, so how do we deliver more on that? And it's releasing GH Kitchen, which launched softly on Monday. We're in that bug testing phase at the moment this week, hopefully none. And then after that, we'll go through customer comms in the following weeks. And then following that is that we're launching our first ever limited newsletter series to support the GH Kitchen app launch, which will launch at the beginning of December. It will be called GH Cooks Christmas. So it will tell you over a series of 5 days how to cook to the best way that you can, or whatever your limitations or how ambitious you are with the turkey. I'm certainly not. It will tell you how you can do each section of Christmas Day per day. So you'll have your mains, your sides, your canapes, your desserts.
Right.
And that, again, is adding that customer value. So there'll be exclusive content within these newsletters that you can't read anywhere else. We call that dine-in content, where it doesn't go anywhere else. It's just there for the reader.
Yeah.
So already delivering that value, keeping someone engaged, recognizing and rewarding that loyalty, but then also within that, we're driving content that you'll only be able to access within the GH Kitchen app for the first couple of weeks. So it's using one already highly engaged user base and moving them to another channel where they'll find even more value there.
Lucy Kung offered some closing advice for publishers from her creator economy-focused panel, which is salient at this point.
I do think the coming couple of years, it's really time to be bold, but smart. You know, make big bets, but do the research first. Don't just make the big bets.
As the volume of AI-generated content grows, there's been concern from the industry that publisher content will simply get lost in the tsunami. But many of the speakers at FIPP Congress are seeing this as a reason to double down on the human aspect of their work. The Economist is taking a 3D approach focused on differentiation, direct relationships, and discoverability. Here's Luke Bradley-Jones, president at The Economist, explaining how they're centering the humanity.
But in terms of acquiring new customers, that's changing how we're thinking. So it's leading us to focus on 3 things, what I call the 3 Ds. So that's differentiation, direct relationships, and discoverability. And differentiation, as I've mentioned, it's how do we make sure that in a world of kind of AI-generated content and aggregated content, we lean into that much more premium artisanal nature of our journalism. And that's where the Economist Insider strategy was conceived, to really create something which is unique and can't be replicated or served by an AI aggregator.
Yeah.
The direct relationships piece is how do we make sure that they come to our app and they get an experience which is truly delightful. So we've launched an AI lab earlier this year, already into our first prototype, and that will lead to much more rapid product innovation where you create quite different experiences in the app than what you're used to. And then the third D, discoverability, is in a sort of post-search world. How do you make sure that your brand is visible and easily findable? And that's led us to invest in good old-fashioned brand marketing. So we've increased our spend in brand marketing by quite a bit this year. We're going to increase it further again next year. And I think actually that's critical in a kind of post-search world, to making sure your brand is salient and visible and people are looking to come to you directly.
Semafor's Justin Smith sees their investment in quality journalism as a core pillar of the brand and a reason for their rapid success.
And the quality of the journalism and breaking through is essential. And all of our journalism is about this idea that the world is completely changed. It's turned on its head. There's a whole new world economy that's sort of emerging. And there needs to be an interpreter or a brand, a modern brand that is providing intelligence about this new world. So I would say, number one, the quality of the journalism and whether it's attracting very, very discerning audience that we care about, which is CEOs and C-suite executives. We're sort of very much in the exact market of the FT, the Economist, World Economic Forum, maybe the Wall Street Journal. And getting CEOs to read you, who are running huge companies is not an obvious thing. And now, 3 years in, literally, I think 475 of the Fortune 500 CEOs are readers. And they read our direct email newsletters, which we send to them. We have products that are directed for CEOs. The engagement is incredibly high. So between the journalism and the audience quality and the engagement of that audience, those are the foundations for Semafor. And then, of course, the events and the other things we do with that are built on the journalism and the audience engagement.
The Atlantic's Chief Growth Officer, Megha Garibaldi, also took to the stage to talk about the publication's subscription success. It launched a paywall in 2019 and now has 1.4 million subscribers, paying upwards of $80 a year.
The newsroom at The Atlantic is also really built with incredible journalistic power and talent. And I think in a few sessions earlier, folks were talking about that is only going to become ever so important in the age of AI, where readers want to connect with a writer. They want to feel closer to the writer and to understand the power that they bring. So The Atlantic is all about that. It's long-form journalism. It's deep reporting, analyses, thoughts, opinions, ideas. And The Atlantic is primarily, again, it's about the American idea, and we have about 1.4 million subscribers right now, paying anywhere upwards of $80 a year. And again, it commands that because of this idea that there has to be excellent journalism, there has to be wonderful writing, and there has to be principles that will not be shaken.
As a side note, Megha will be a featured guest on this podcast later this season, so if you want to hear more from her, make sure you're following our podcast wherever you're listening from. Hearst VP of Media Licensing Joe Martin echoed similar sentiments about the need for trusted brands to double down on their value proposition.
Last year, AI-generated content websites increased by about 700%. And actually, if anyone saw an article last week in Axios, we actually crossed an interesting threshold where 50% of the content, of article content that's ever been produced is now, on the history of the internet, is now produced by AI. And that's obviously is increasing every day. However, we know that people don't like it. Surveys will show that trust in an article drops by 50% when someone just perceives it to be generated by AI. That's not even no, that's just a perception. And that also flows through to advertising and purchase intent as well, that a purchase intent drops by 14% for ads that are placed next to something that people perceive to be generated by AI. So what does this mean? Well, obviously, the internet is awash by AI-generated content, and finding some of the good stuff is harder than it's ever been before. But we believe now that actually being a trusted brand that people know is more of an asset than ever before. And if you think for any reason that brands aren't is relevant, I think there's a number of real-world examples where this proves that to be wrong, and it's shifting people's behavior.
Paradoxically, despite the number of speakers highlighting the power of brand in building resilience to AI disruption, there was also some lively discussion about the power of individual personalities and creators. Lucy Kung and Jacob Donnelly pointed out on the Creator Economy panel that traditional media companies are bloated as institutions, and that prevents the ability to be fully profitable. And that's not to say it's all rosy for creators. They face similar challenges with owning their audience relationships and building followings on rented land. Here's Jacob explaining his reasoning.
So I think there's actually kind of an interesting situation playing out. So audience attention is very much on creators, primarily because they're creating content that people actually want to consume. Many publishers who got very addicted to traffic over the last 15 years stopped creating content for people. They created content for machines and Google and whatever they wanted, and got very addicted to high quantities of traffic. Whereas influencers, by and large, have a direct one-to-one connection or somewhat of a parasocial connection to their audience, which has made it possible for people to feel a much tighter connect to what the content is.
Jacob thinks publishers should be looking internally for talent and how they can incentivize them.
It's about looking at the people in your organization who could become content creators. The problem with media companies is we don't incentivize our talent the way that the creator economy allows, right? If as an entrepreneurial creator, I go out in the world, I launch a newsletter, I grow that newsletter, I launch an event, I do that event, AMO will do $1 million in revenue next year, right? Whereas as an individual content creator, my best bet would have been making $100,000, $150,000 as a salary. There's a big difference. They're now taking more risk. Like there's a big gap between 100, 150,000, and that's a high salary or $1 million in revenue. So I think the first thing is we have to be comfortable identifying the absolute best talent in our organizations and incentivizing them. I mean, you know, if you look at Axios does this. They've got Sarah Fisher, who she's a wonderful reporter. She covers the media space. They incentivize Sarah to build incremental new products. They've rolled a membership business out around Sarah, but she is at Axios, right? Axios is the company. They own all the IP, right? They are in charge of all monetization. Sarah only focuses on just creating content, but she is incentivized significantly greater than almost any other reporter is in the United States. And so is Dan Primack there, and so are all the other top-tier talent. And if you think about it, media actually has done this before. Look at broadcast, right? Where like CNN, Anderson Cooper's making millions of dollars a year. Anderson Cooper's a creator. He's just a creator, viewed in the old school way of you find a star talent, you sign a contract with them, you put them on TV and let them do their thing. It's the same thing. I actually don't think that there's this fundamental difference between, you know, building a media company or building a creator business. Like, yes, the formats are somewhat different, but at the end of the day, if you are creating great content, your audience is going to be happy, you will be able to monetize.
The Atlantic has recently added the ability to follow individual writers, and although The Economist maintains its collective voice in its core written products with no bylines, other products like podcasts and video give audiences an opportunity to connect directly, as Luke Bradley-Jones noted.
I think the main innovation for us in podcasts was starting to provide more visibility to our journalists, and that's one of the reasons that they've done really well with our customers as well as a standalone paying base. So we have no bylines in our core written products. We continue to maintain that model. We sort of the collective voice of The Economist is the most important thing that we want to maintain as an editorial point of view. But when it comes to podcasts, when it comes to The Economist Insider, you get to hear and see and meet the journalists and really start to understand the different characters, whether that's Shashank Joshi is our defense editor or John Prideaux is our US editor. These are personalities who now have followings, people who are tuning into them on a weekly basis to listen or see what they have to say.
The New York Times are also taking an active role in making sure readers are hearing from journalists, not just a brand, as well as get their audience more involved in a community, as Jordan explained.
We're also really trying to become more human. Again, this is a theme that's come up the past couple of days, but younger audiences in particular are turning toward individuals over institutions. They want to hear from a person and not a faceless brand. We're actively investing in new ways to deepen how our journalists engage directly with readers, making our work more approachable and transparent. We've been dramatically scaling up what we call reporter on camera videos, where experts speak directly to audiences about the rigor and process behind their stories. We've also been working to make our reporter profiles more direct and transparent, highlighting their differentiated expertise. And we've been working with hundreds of reporters to engage in meaningful and clarifying conversations in our comments section. They answer questions, they respond to personal stories shared by readers, and they address details or in the reporting process. Again, our goal is just to create authentic human interactions, helping people see the rigor, the care, and the people behind our journalism. And the last thing we're trying to do, no, not the last thing, but in this presentation, is more participatory. News is becoming more communal. It's not a solitary action, but it's something people want to discuss, share, and debate immediately after consuming it. And we also feel like people are starting to process and understand the news by how other people are reacting to it. So we're creating more ways for readers to participate directly in our news product. We're investing in a new comments platform to foster safe but insightful dialogue about the news. And as you saw on the previous slide, this is a space where our reporters can engage directly with readers. And we're also experimenting with bringing those conversations much more front and center in our news experience. In culture and lifestyle coverage, we're inviting audiences to weigh in, to create their own ballots, share opinions, and connect with one another and with us around the books, the movies, the television shows, the restaurants they loved or maybe hated. All of this, again, is part of our larger effort to reimagine how you can participate in the news and build that trust and connection.
Chris Duncan, founder and CEO at Sea Delta, made some predictions in a fireside chat with Ricky Sutton, aided by a glass of scotch each, for the coming year.
My prediction for next year is that there's got to be a massive talent development program in all publishers. We're going to make the argument that we are a human media compared to machine media and synthetic media. You will not be able to do that if you're sitting behind a brand masthead as your depiction of a human being. So if you look at the people who are cutting through at the moment, it's people who are putting human talent, people's faces they recognize, voices they recognize, tone they recognize, opinions they recognize, positions they recognize, people that are prepared to explain, people that are prepared to kind of take the extra time to sort of give, reach out to other sides of opinion and explain why that happens. And I think there's got to be a huge talent push next year. There's an opportunity for publishers to really make their talent famous.
Artificial intelligence has unsurprisingly been a theme throughout FIPP Congress, but often on practical terms. Publishers have spoken about the challenges they've faced over the past few years, but also, encouragingly, about the ways that they're harnessing it. Remember Time's quote earlier, "Don't let AI happen to you, let AI happen for you." Well, that kept coming up. Speakers outlined how they'd used AI to enhance, summarise and translate content to increase engagement and reach. On a panel exploring AI in action, The Atlantic's Mega Garibaldi was firm that the magazine is about humans, for humans and by humans. The publisher is, however, using AI on an operational level to identify archive pieces, target and segment, and on their paywall. They even have a microsite called the Atlantic Labs, which she described as a playground to test AI ideas.
You will never find a piece on The Atlantic that was written by AI. There will always be a human behind it. But then if you think about the other layers from an operational and efficiency perspective, we believe there is opportunity with AI. So, for example, we partner with 11 Labs, who does our audio narration. We have multiple different models that help us identify pieces from our archive. We look at targeting and segmentation capabilities through the lens of AI, dynamic paywall. And then experimentation is the most critical. So we have a microsite called the Atlantic Labs, which is almost like the playground before we ship things onto the site, because we want to be very careful and thoughtful while knowing that there are advantages to be had. But let's first start at a place where we can understand what that truly looks like.
Harvard Business Review are also testing tools across editorial, production, and also to enhance the customer experience, as editor Maureen Hotch outlines.
And then from a technology standpoint of view, we're also just always trying to test tools and determine which ones are going to be the best fit for our editors, our producers, for all the different people that go into making our content, but also what are the experiences that are going to be most valuable for our subscribers. So the subscriber experience part is the other big bucket that we're focusing on when it comes to incorporating AI.
Time used AI to enhance their coverage of their famous Time Person of the Year, offering multiple languages and chat functionality. Mark Howard said that the most encouraging thing was how much audience engagement increased as a result.
And then we also view there being a big opportunity to leverage the different tools and to be able to build products. One of the great things that we've been able to introduce is last year for the Time Person of the Year with Donald Trump, we introduced an AI toolbar. And the AI toolbar was a truly generative AI experience built on top of ChatGPT, which we were able to leverage credits from that relationship. So we were able to parlay that dynamic. And we created an experience where a user could go in and they could take the article, which was published in its entirety, and they could have it summarized in a shorter medium-length summary. You could have it translated into any number of different languages. Interestingly, we presented 7 different languages that you could translate to in 24 languages were used when people actually engaged with the toolbar and asked for the content. You could have it read to you. You could have an audio chat versus just a text chat. Or you could do any combination of those things. And what we saw was the engagement time skyrocketed. And that set us out on a path, which is what we're excited about now, which is we've now taken the 102-year archive of time. We've indexed it with our partner Scale AI, who helped us build the toolbar. In June, we launched an audio briefing, a curated brief every day by our newsroom. But in the next week or two, we're going to be launching the next version, which is that toolbar plus the audio briefs is one unified experience across the site. And everybody will be able to generate those audio briefs on demand.
There were many, many more examples across both stages and days of publishers getting hands-on with AI, whether that's dipping their toes in with a project or going all in on building AI-powered tech. There were also some timely reminders from the stage about the reality of AI for consumers right now. In one session, strategist David Buttle gave an overview of the AI landscape and how people are using it.
I think we're often presented with disproportionately kind of extreme views on the extent to which AI is a transformative technology. There's the leaders of the largest AI labs describing existential risks, and bioweapons, mass unemployment, societal collapse. And then there's skeptics peddling the opposite view. This data, again, direct from OpenAI, tells us where users are actually finding utility right now, and even on a bearish view of AI. One thing it seems to be really good at is information retrieval. 50% of usage is either practical guidance or seeking information, and around 35% of that is squarely substitutional for general search. With a further 15% potentially a new breed of more complex queries that wouldn't have existed in a Google world or would have existed over a number of Google searches, but that AI has allowed to exist in this new technological paradigm.
David had some sobering advice for publishers concerned about the impact of AI on search traffic, something which, as we mentioned at the start, came up frequently in conversations over Spanish snacks and wine.
Google traffic may be stabilizing for some, but it remains precarious, and I think we should consider organic Google traffic in structural decline until AI technology has reached full deployment and adoption. Clearly, that means we need to continue diversifying our traffic acquisition strategies. The effect of AI search is going to fall unevenly across different categories of content, so understanding what content within your corpus and within your output is highly vulnerable and what content creates resilience should be key, and focusing editorial resources and investment on those types of content that will continue to attract users to owned and operated platforms in the future is going to be a really important way to come through this period of disruption. Visibility on AI platforms is likely to be erosive. I would do everything you can to protect your IP and get the bots off your sites. And then finally, licensing is going to form a larger part of the revenue mix in the future. Starting to experiment in the licensing market and put strategic principles in place around the circumstances under which you're prepared to license and the content which you will license and the content which you won't license, with a view to learning about this market, is going to be really important as well.
Juan Señor's annual presentation on the latest innovation trends in media contains some helpful perspectives from his research. Here he is emphasising the need for human oversight at all levels.
I think this is the best way to describe AI in the newsroom today, is the intern who never sleeps, but who needs constant supervision. And this is how we have AI at the moment. It's doing wonderful things. AI is an incredible set of tools. It does so many things, but the supervision, right? And we've seen OpenAI admitting, they said it publicly, they published an academic paper which they paid for, saying that OpenAI will forever lie, will forever hallucinate. And there's a percentage, they've given a percentage, that about 0.2 to 0.8, less than 1%, will always hallucinate. That's just the way the algorithm works, because it has to search for answer, right? It always has to give you an answer. So sometimes it has to, combine things that perhaps do not compute. So that constant supervision, it's key throughout.
Juan echoed David's earlier assertion that publishers need to prepare for a business with zero traffic. He concluded with a plea for us all to defend our worth and what we do best. And these are the final speaker words we're going to leave you with.
We cannot, in this age of AI slop, just be newsletters, press release agencies, or egotorials. This is not going to distinguish us. We will never make it through unless we got spine and soul and something to say. You've got to have something to say. Remember, AI cannot have something to say. It has something to say about something that someone said, but they can't generate the thought. And I think journalistically, editorially, we need to understand that that has to be our focus. What are we saying that's new? What are we saying that's provocative, that is really advancing the story, experiencing the story? Right? And that requires personality, voice, and taking stands. We are the one interviewing someone face to face. We are the one with the access. This is personification of, and that means fewer resources focused on giving you experience the news. Because reading the news may be gone for us. And that leads to newsrooms becoming a bit of talent agencies, right? We need to give our journalists voices and faces. They need to become personalities, right? People follow people, not just brands, especially Gen Z, Gen Alpha. So we need to start playing in the game of influencers and creators by personifying our journalism. And that means personality, taking a stand and building communities. That's what these people do so well. And this is something we don't do in newsrooms because we hide behind the brand and people are following the brand, and the entire business proposition is you follow the brand, not the journalist that works for the brand. And that may need to change for us to be relevant in an AI age. So as we move firmly into this AI age, everything is at stake. It's existential. Madrid 2025, for all of you, it's going to be an existential moment. And you need to rethink the business, hopefully, along these things that we know for sure, or we know we can confidently say is the direction of travel, which we try to highlight for you in the book every year. Because the future 100 years of publishing really belong to those who defend the worth of our words. Thank you.
Thank you so much to FIPP for having us, and for letting us use the audio, and of course for the wonderful food and drink in Madrid. They have loads of write-ups on their website, fipp.com, and have also got an incredibly impressive platform featuring all the videos and transcripts of the sessions, which has been hugely useful to us in putting our own coverage together. You can actually purchase access to that if you didn't make it over to Madrid. More details for that on their website, fipp.com. That's FIPP.com. Now, if you're new here, we have a bi-weekly newsletter on the publishing industry, focusing on people and products, and specifically what's working at various publishers, from indie magazines to global publisher powerhouses. You can find that and all of our written and audio work at voices.media. Tune in next week, where Peter will be chatting to media journalist and founder David Adeleke about his journey with Africa-focused publication Communique. Until then, adios.